typically at 9 in the morning. We work until around noon. We take a break at noon, and food is being brought in for your lunches. And we'll continue at about an hour's delay for lunch. It might be shorter than that, but thereabouts. It could be maybe 45 minutes for lunch, but an hour. And then we'll start again, and we'll work until 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And that'll be the schedule pretty much for the duration of the trial. Every day, 9 a.m. to 4:30 or 5, with a break at lunchtime. We also take breaks in the morning and in the afternoon, as necessary, but there's at least one break, and often two, in the afternoon. But you should count on being in this building, in the jury room, for the duration of the trial. So that's number one. And number two is the duration of the trial. There is I'm going to place it at well under 1 in 100, a less than a 1% chance that for some reason I would order during the trial that you would be sequestered, which would mean that you would be housed in a hotel at night in individual rooms, and you'd be provided with all of your meals all day long. You'd have limited access to television and internet and that type of thing, but I have not done that since I was statutorily required to do so. When I started in the system 50 years ago, on a case of this nature, the jury was required to be sequestered, so I'm familiar with the process, and I know how onerous it is, and so I will resist it in every way I can. But I can't rule it out entirely. As I say, I'm being very honest with you when I tell you there is less than a 1% chance in my estimation that we would come to that, but I don't want to spring it on you suddenly. That's pretty painful. So, but let's talk principally about the reality of it, which is the days that you'll be here and the 9 to 4:30 or 5 time period. I'm not going to guarantee that we won't run later on some occasion. We might have a witness who's come from Thailand or something, who we have to take and has to catch a plane or whatever, and possibly could go a little later in the day or start a little earlier in the morning. But I think that it's fairly safe that we will be on the schedule I've indicated. So let me ask now, and well, I'm going to do a couple of things. Number one, the voir dire is conducted under oath or affirmation. So I think what I'm just going to do, I'll swear just those who are in this room at this point, and if we bring replacements over from the boardroom, we'll swear them separately. Now, even though those of you back of the railing are not going to be answering questions yet, I'm going to ask that you join in the boardroom now. So is there anybody who has who's in this building, who's in the courthouse building, who has a religious or moral objection to the taking of an oath? Is there anybody? All right, then would each of you signify your acceptance of the oath by raising one of your hands, please, and the clerk will administer the oath.
So 7 is actually...
What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button and let me know how you're doing.
To your competency, to sit as a juror in this action where the state of Wisconsin is plaintiff and Kyle Rittenhouse is defendant, so help you God.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let me, yeah. In the back row, just the back row, that's seats 1 through 11 in the back. Is there anyone who is unable, well, let me, I always give a little speech first about, well, they're often about me, and I'm going to make this one about me too. When I was in law school, There was a war going on. It was there was a lot of unpopularity about the war. It was very controversial, and there were a lot of people involved. We had this is Vietnam War, and huge numbers. I think at sometimes we had just short of 600,000 men over there. Probably some of you were there. And matter of fact, it's November, so do we have veterans in here on either side of the railing? Somebody who served in our military? How about a hand for these people, huh? Okay, there were just short of 600,000 principally men in those days over there, and I think, 57,000 of them never came back. So I was in school at that time, and a lot of my classmates were getting drafted out of school. Now, that happened to a lot of people, whether they were in school, whether they couldn't find a job, whatever the case may be. But they, some of them had wedding plans, some of them had jobs already lined up, and they got a notice. And they had to go. And there are three things that we had to do for the great benefit we have of being Americans: pay our taxes, serve in the military if drafted, and serve on jury duty. You don't have. There is no draft anymore, so there's no obligatory military service at the time. So those are the two things we have to do as citizens: is to pay our taxes and serve on a jury. The reason I'm talking about this is I saw people's lives change dramatically because of something they had to do for their country. Whether they agreed with it or not, they had to serve in the military, and some go to war. And so that's the background with which I approach your obligation as jurors. And I'm saying this so that you understand, if when I ask, is there any reason that you can't be on the jury, understand that I may say no to you because of that background. Even though there's no harm in your asking, it's perfectly valid for you to ask to be excused because you've got some obligation, a personal obligation or something, but I may say no anyway. Please understand that that's the background with which I approach this. Otherwise, it can become a question of just people who don't want to be here, wanting to get off, and that wasn't the story in 1968, and it's not the story now. So that's my little talk about that. Now, there are some good reasons. I mean, if you have already purchased tickets and you've got a vacation all paid for or something like that that's coming up next week, I want to hear about that because that can be a perfectly good reason. There may be some work-related issues that would be sufficient cause that I would excuse you, but I do want you to understand being excused from jury duty is a major thing, and it's not going to just happen easily or routinely, but you're not going to get shouted down either. No, I won't. I'm not. Hopefully, not going to try to. I'm not going to humiliate you in any way by just saying no. So that's the beginning of that. Now, is there anybody for whom this schedule creates a problem in this back row of 1 to 11? All right. Now we're going to question by number, and I believe that's with the consent of both parties in this case. And the reason we're doing it is we've got such a large number of jurors, much higher than usual, and it makes it a lot easier for everybody if we question you by your number. So when I call on, if I recognize you to speak, do you still have those numbers?
No, we took them, but their post-it notes are on the chairs.
They're okay. I'm right behind them. So, but you'll have to crane your neck and get back there and see what your number is if you don't remember it already. But your number is on your chair. So if you state your seat number or the number posted on your seat, are they identical? Is she number 3?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trusting you.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, what's up?
I'm number 3. I recently moved to Chicago.
Recently moved to Chicago? All right, well, you have my sympathies, ma'am. But oh, no, I love Chicago. Please. All right, so that's a permanent residence, ma'am? Okay. Any reason this lady shouldn't be excused?
No.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down, and she's excused. All right. All right, Mary Irene Mendoza? Would you come up, please, Ms. Mendoza? Yeah, if you we should send them in reserve, in reverse order. I never realized that before, in that first row. So they don't have to climb over everybody.
Judge, may we approach real quick?
This trial is going so weird already. The judge loves talking. Loves talking. They were doing Jeopardy a little bit ago. This guy should have been like a game show host or a comedian instead of a judge. I mean, I don't know how good or bad of a judge he is, but he sure likes talking.
35, who's in seat 3. Would you have raised your hand so far to anything that I asked? Convenience. Well, convenience is the wrong word. A challenge of the schedule. No problem? All right. Now I know there's a lot of inconvenience involved in this, and so please understand. To anything that we do appreciate your sacrifice, but so some of you aren't even bringing things up that maybe you ordinarily would. So thank you for that. Anybody else in that back row, 1 to 11, seat number 6?
My reason is I have a job that's been contracted out and I have to finish it this week, or else I break my contract.
Okay. What kind of work is it?
Home and business remodeling?
Do you have anyone who works for you or with you?
Yeah.
Do you? Could that person or persons do the
I have
job?
Two other people that work with me.
Okay. Is there a way that they can complete the work? Why not?
They're not going to finish it without me
Because
because I'm the one that gets a lot of the stuff done.
do you ever like get sick or anything like that, or just have to take off or go deer hunting or anything like that?
It's a total of 3 people doing it.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
Okay.
I just would it be impossible for the job to be completed without you?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sit on that, and I'll let you know. Number 7.
Well, actually, I'm number 34, but I switched.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you have no reason to be sorry.
Okay, so I'm a special ed teacher for severe and profound disabilities, and I'm supposed to tell you it would cause a hardship for my district.
What district is it?
Greenfield.
Okay. You told me.
Okay.
Thank you. Next. This is number 8. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm a single mother. I have a very young children.
How old are the children?
One is 10 and has a disability, and one is 13. And I'm a teacher, and I took a job last year in their school to attend closer to the one that need extra help. So 2 weeks, that would be very challenging. My family lives in Europe, and they can't travel over here right now because of COVID restrictions still. Otherwise, generally, my mom comes and helps doing things like this.
Your mom ordinarily comes, but she's in Europe?
Yeah, both my mom and dad live in Europe, and generally she travels when it's needed for us. But because of COVID, Italy is not allowed to be traveling at this time yet. So I don't have anybody to leave my children with.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. I'll get back on that one. Anybody else in the back row? Okay, thank you. How about the second row, numbers 12 through 22? And we're talking. This is different from my usual number sequence, so I'm spinning here. What is your number, ma'am?
15.
15, and what's up?
The only thing is I have chronic migraines, so I can't tell you ahead of time. I take normal medication, so I couldn't tell you like tomorrow if I'm
Okay,
The last one I had was a week and a half ago, and I didn't function until afternoon.
okay.
What it's worth.
Now, migraines can come in multiple forms.
Yes.
Some of them, you could get one that would be
Yeah,
a real pain.
I've been taken out in an ambulance.
Okay, that's what you get some that are disabling.
Yes. Yes.
You have some that you can work past, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. How frequently would you have them that are just terribly, severely disabling?
Once a month.
Okay, okay,
That's why I'm saying something.
okay.
And I'm okay if you have to think about it. I just wanted to.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a note of it, and I'm going to take it under consideration. That's number 15. So,
What's up, Patty? I can't replay the clip. I wish I could. I wish I could replay what happened. They got Kyle in trouble, but I can't. It's against the YouTube community guidelines.
right. Next in the middle row, number 21, I think that is, Mr. Number 20.
So far on our
Is that your
our
number?
poll here on YouTube, there's been 140 votes.
Surgery scheduled on
Will Kyle either beat the charges and walk free, get all charges and serve time, or beat some charges but get time?
Which would you rather?
55 of you believe that he will beat all the charges and walk free. The only thing that's kind of making me wonder is what about the minor in possession of a firearm? How's he going to beat that? That's what I'm
Number 1, number 2.
kind of stuck on.
Is it difficult to reschedule?
I don't know how
What's up, No More Me?
to schedule.
Okay.
I haven't even tried.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna give that some thought.
Thank you so much, Sunshine Kills. I really appreciate the donation and support.
Okay. Anybody
Thank
else?
you for being here.
Um,
Sunshine Kills, there is a Rumble feed.
this is
Maybe
the
it's
first row.
maybe it's just late, but it should be up there.
Do you have your hand up, ma'am? Here.
Yeah, it says 4 people are watching right now.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maddocaster. I really appreciate you. What's up, Crystal Clear?
My partner and I.
Maddocaster, do I think there will be riots if Kyle is acquitted? I don't really know. I don't know. If this was last year, I would say absolutely. But in Biden's America, I don't know. Not sure. I think there will be protests. I don't know how big they'll be. I don't know if they'll necessarily be of riot level, but I think there will definitely be mad people.
Operation or not?
What's up, Wild Turkey?
Store, the
Retail operation?
portion of it, and right now we're not doing any of the planting, so that's the only thing.
Sunshine Kills. Oh, you're using the Rumble app? Yeah, I don't know anything about that Rumble app. I know it sucks. I don't know anything else. Their app is trash. You'd be better off using the browser. If you use the app, you can't use the chat at all on Rumble.
And you
But I'm definitely live on Rumble.
whether it would be difficult for her to reschedule. Her
What's up, Mindsteaders?
She's already been put off.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, John Doe. I know there's a couple live streamers outside the courthouse right now. I figured during the breaks we'll check out what's going on outside. I don't plan on talking over the judge this whole time, but right now what they're talking about is meaningless. So I figure I'll get my talking out while I can.
Okay. Thank you. Ma'am, number 16. I'm sorry. What's that?
24.
24.
Yes, I'm a single mother and I have a junior high student that I'm responsible to drop off at school and pick up from school. So I don't know what that would look like.
Okay.
Yeah, crystal clear. The only thing is I don't think BLM and Antifa is as trendy as
What about the pickup? What time is that?
it was last year. I don't think people think it's as trendy to be a part of that.
Does anyone else ever pick him up?
Not really, his father works second shifts, so it's, primarily I'm the only one that picks him up, so. We also have
Parabellum, the reason they can try him as adult but charge him for underage possession is because
Not if I can help it.
it's according to stipulations of age.
All right.
So like you can be charged as an adult at 17, but you're not considered an adult to own a firearm or other adult things until you're 18. Like you can go to jail at 17, but you can't join the army until you're 18.
Does he have friends from school?
As a person who went to jail at 17 I was only 17 for a week the first time I went to jail. That was the very first thing I thought of is I can't serve the country, but I can serve time.
That row?
What's up, Dark Star?
Okay, thanks. And now let's start with a mini row in the front here. In the front, anybody? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to think about some of these that I've left pending, and we'll move on. And I'm going to introduce the case to you. It's entitled "The State Against."
Oh, you can join the Army at 17?
And
Well, there you go. It should be that way. If you can serve time, you should be able to serve your country.
some wrong has been done that can be addressed.
What's up,
by the
Dennis?
law. A complaint can be filed with the clerk of the court, asking for some legal action to be taken, and that document is known as exactly that, the complaint, and that's where the word plaintiff comes from. The person or entity which files the complaint is the plaintiff, and in a criminal case, the state is always the plaintiff and is typically represented by the district attorney of the county, and in this case is represented. The case is the case is presented by Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger and Assistant District Attorney James Krause. The person against whom this complaint is brought is known as the defendant because of the role of defending the action. And the defendant in this case is a gentleman by the name of Kyle Rittenhouse.
What's up, Adam?
He's here with his lawyers, Mr. Mark Richards and Mr. Corey Sharafacy and Ms. Natalie Wisco. And after some preliminary activity has taken place on the case, the district attorney makes a formal charge selection and presents it to the court in a document which is known as the information. It gets its name from its informative function, and it can contain one or more allegations or charges of criminal activity. You hear that referred to in your experience in life or on television or whatever as counts. And in this case, the information contains 7 counts alleging various levels of unlawful activity. The first charge is charges that on the 25th of August of 2020 at the city of Kenosha in this county, that the defendant recklessly caused the death of Joseph D. Rosenbaum under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. This is a crime which is literally known as reckless endangerment reckless homicide of the first degree. The second count charges the defendant with another charge is first degree recklessly endangering safety, and alleges that at the same time and place the defendant recklessly endangered the safety of another, Richard McGinnis, under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life. The third count charges that the defendant committed an additional crime of reckless endangerment of the first degree at the same time and place by recklessly endangering the safety of an unknown person under circumstances showing an utter disregard for human life. The fourth count charges that at the same time and place the defendant caused the death of Anthony M. Huber with intent to kill that person. This is a charge literally known as intentional homicide of the first degree. The fifth count charges that at the same time and place the defendant attempted to cause the death of Gage Grosskreutz with intent to kill that person. This is a crime literally known as attempted intentional homicide of the first degree. The sixth count charges that at the same time and place the defendant, being a person under the age of 18, did go armed with a dangerous weapon. This is a crime literally known as possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. And the seventh count charges that at the same time and place the defendant committed the crime, the unlawful act of failing to comply with the order of with an order of local government emergency management activity, alleging that he intentionally failed to comply with an order issued by an agent of the state or of a local unit of government who is engaged in emergency management activities under Chapter 323 of the statutes, including training exercises. And so to each of these charges, I should add also that with respect to the first 5 counts, the district attorney alleges that the crime was committed while the defendant was armed with a dangerous weapon, using a dangerous weapon. To each of these charges in the information, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty, which is a demand that every material allegation of each of these counts be proved with respect to the first 6 counts beyond a reasonable doubt, and as to the 7th count, by evidence which is clear, convincing, and satisfactory to a reasonable certainty. And I'll talk later about the burdens of proof. The defendant is not obliged to prove his innocence. The entire burden of proof is upon the district attorney to establish the guilt of the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. If the state is unable to sustain that burden, then the jury is bound to find the defendant not guilty. Well, let's start with that. Is there anyone of you who is related by blood or marriage or adoption to or acquainted with the defendant, in this case, Kyle Rittenhouse? Is there any one of you who knows any of his family or kin? Does any of you know any of the attorneys whose names have been mentioned here, or has ever had any business or professional or social dealings with any of them, or been involved in a transaction in which one of them was also involved? I'm going to ask well, I think first I'm going to give you some background on the case, and this case has enjoyed a lot of publicity, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But I'm going to give you some of what the complaint alleges, because the information is a formal statement of the charge, but there's more of the district attorney's factual assertions contained in the complaint. And it is alleged that on the night in question, there was a good deal of public unrest in the central area of the city of Kenosha. And it is alleged that the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, was in Kenosha at that time, that he was armed with a rifle, and that also in the city at that particular time were Joseph Rosenbaum, Richard McGinnis, this unknown person who is referred to in the 3rd count, Anthony Huber, and Gage Grosskreutz, and that during the course of the evening there was a period when there was close contact between Mr. Rosenbaum and the defendant, and the district attorney alleges that it ended with the defendant firing a bullet, or firing a series of bullets, one of which brought about the death of Mr. Rosenbaum. With respect to Mr. McGinnis, he was in the close proximity of the incident in which that gunfire occurred, and that the district attorney claims that his safety was endangered by that. After that incident, it is alleged by the district attorney that Mr. Rittenhouse started moving northbound on Sheridan Road. And the incident, by the way, involving Mr. Rosenbaum is alleged to have occurred down at 63rd and Sheridan in a place called the Car Source. And then after that, it is alleged that Mr. Rittenhouse was walking down the center of the Sheridan Road, northbound, and at one point There were other people in the street who appeared to be in pursuit. The district attorney claims in his complaint that Mr. Rittenhouse stumbled and fell, and then there were a series of people who came into close proximity with him, and that at that point he began firing at three of them, the unknown person, Mr. Grosskreutz, well, next Mr. Huber, and then Mr. Grosskreutz, and that he missed his shot or shots involving the unknown person. Mr. Huber was fatally struck, and Mr. Grosskreutz sustained a gunshot wound. And that's what the case is about. And we might as well ask now, is there anybody who's read or heard, is there anybody who hasn't read or heard anything about this case? Okay, now I'm going to give you another talk now. This is about our Constitution. 1,000 years ago, a case like this would have been tried. Well, let's go back even further. Let's go back to I'm sure you remember it, the fall of Rome in 476. And when Rome fell, the world changed dramatically. And the ancient law, which had developed from Greece and Rome, which involved jury trials, not the kind of juries we have today, but they were the resolution of legal disputes by use of reason. And that fell with Rome. And some very primitive methods came into use to decide legal disputes, including criminal cases. Sometimes I saw somebody at one of my grandkids' games a month or so ago, and he was wearing a shirt that said "Demand trial by ordeal." No, demand trial by combat. And I thought, what an unusual shirt. But because I talk about this once in a while, I thought it was kind of interesting. I guess it turns out that there's a program on television that deals with that. Is anybody familiar with that? Well, there's some program on TV that has dealt with the concept of trial by combat, and I think there may be a movie coming out about it. It actually was true 1,000 years ago that people who are having a legal dispute, including in criminal cases, could either themselves or hire someone to fight for them, and they'd fight with the other side physically, and there'd be an ecclesiastical blessing. A priest would bless it, and it was decided that God would guide the hand of the innocent, and that the innocent person would win that fight, and that would be the outcome of the case.
Maybe we should bring that back.
They also had something called trial by ordeal. And the concept was that a person would be made to walk across, for example, a bed of coal, burning coals, or stick her hand or his hand into a boiling water. And depending on the healing period, if the person recovered sufficiently, and this was blessed, so that it would be a message from God, that was determined. If he didn't come out too badly, he was innocent. If he did, his punishments had just begun. So that's how they actually decided cases. And then in 1215, Pope Innocent III prohibited...
Yeah, Brian, I'm not sure. He's getting sidetracked while he's already sidetracked.
So
I don't know. I told you he should have been a game host,
they had to turn to some
like a game show host or a comedian or something.
towards the juries.
He likes talking.
And the initial juries were actually made up of people who knew the people involved. People who had either been witnesses, who saw what happened, or people who were acquainted with the people and knew whether they were honorable people, whether they were violent people, whatever the case might be, they had some knowledge of the people, and they'd get together and they'd talk it over and they'd come up with a verdict. Well, what's the number one problem that you would see with a system like that? Bias. Because if the witnesses, well, the people you were with. So the people who were with one side might well side with family members, might side with somebody. So
You guys are killing me saying he sounds like old man Walter.
overnight, but they decided to get.
At least we can follow along.
Would hear testimony.
There's no like sharp turns or anything like that. He's like, when you're thinking really hard, raviolis. I like raviolis. Like,
And you're here because the founder
old man Walter kills me.
didn't trust me. They didn't trust any judge. They knew the abuses that had occurred, even with the jury system. They knew the abuses which occurred under judges who were appointed by the king, and so they were hand-selected, and then they were still responsible to the king to get paid, or I should say, the king was responsible to them to pay them. So they felt that there was way too much influence on the judiciary to trust decisions of this magnitude, deciding a case like this. That should not be entrusted to judges. This should be decided by the people themselves. That's a system that's lasted 225 years. We're the oldest democracy in the world, in part because we have this important check on the government, which is trial by jury. That's why you're here. What goes with that is that there's something else. So
I'm seeing a lot of you guys mentioning things that he talked about in the beginning prior to going live. He said that
and one of the ingredients,
sequestering the jury is on the table, but highly unlikely. He said there's like a 1% chance that will happen. The trial is estimated to last 2 weeks.
People have a right.
I'm trying to think what else I'm seeing a lot of in the chat.
They put another provision in the
I don't know. I think that he already has an idea of how this is all going to go,
title isn't important.
which is why he seems like
For a fair,
so lighthearted about
impartial,
this case, even though we're talking, the death of 2 people and
that's a
another person being
they imposed on
wounded
people who had risked
with a lethal weapon.
their lives as
So
they said themselves.
I think the judge already has his mind made up, although it is up to the jury.
Sacred honor. They pledged all of that, and they literally did. This was a capital offense when they rebelled against their lawful king. And gruesome execution. The forfeiture of all their property. There was something called corruption of blood, where not only were they disabled,
Yeah, Robert, I seen Jen Balsacki. She got the plague.
and
Yeah, well,
sacred
it
honor.
happens. Maybe I'll soften her up. She won't be so snarky when we see her in a week.
But I don't think it gets the attention that it did in a former era.
Kevin, no, I don't plan on covering the White House stuff.
Perfect example.
I pretty much don't plan on covering anything but this for the next 2 weeks or until it ends.
It was the expectation.
I mean, other than like
Swear an oath
protesting and stuff after, like later in the day.
as the head of the church.
During work
Agree
hours,
with that.
I assume we will be doing this for the next 2 weeks.
His skin was to take that oath, but he refused. He didn't deny the king's title, but he simply refused to swear that he believed the king to be the head of the church. And as a result, he was beheaded. That's sacred honor.
Oh, that was the other thing he said. In the beginning of the live, the judge said that
Our freedom.
he has allergies, he will be coughing and stuff like that,
And then again,
but it's not the plague. He reassured everyone it's not the plague,
the Bill of Rights.
and he has all the jabs that
after
you can take at this point.
the United
He's all jabbed up.
under the
He
Constitution.
just wanted to reassure everyone, so,
So
don't have to be scared or nothing like that.
specified an impartial jury, not just a jury that's going to be motivated by one influence of another. This case has become very political. It was involved in the politics of the last election year. To this day, you could go out now and read things from all across the political spectrum about this case, most of which is written by people who know nothing I don't mean that there are no nothings. I mean,
If Jim Balsacki doesn't survive the plague, do you think that Peter will cry?
who are going to hear
Is that inappropriate?
the real evidence in this case. But there's something called the First Amendment. That's another part of our Constitution, where they guarantee the right of a free
Thanks for
press.
being here, Christy.
It's the price we pay for having a free press is a lot of irresponsible and sloppy journalism. This is not an.
What's up, Dom?
We have. I've read things about this case that were perfectly stated what had happened in this court. And there are things that I wouldn't. I think was I in the courtroom when that happened? It can be frightening. So I'm not bashing anybody, but I'm going to talk about what you need to do, what you need to be thinking about if you're picked to hear this case, and how much reliance you can put on things that may be just sloppy, which is a vast amount of it. Some of it that is deliberately biased, that's out there, and sometimes from respectable media outlets. But that's the price we pay for having a free press, because we value that. But we also value having a fair trial. So the critical thing you must remember is whatever you've read or heard about the case before, whatever you've been thinking about the case, you have to be in line with what these people who risked their lives for our freedom asked of us, demanded of us. Fair and impartial based upon the evidence. Those who are picked for this jury will be in the front row seat to see exactly what happened and make a rational decision based on that. And anybody who's not on board with deciding strictly on the evidence needs to tell us that. If you can't do that, then you can't be fair, and you're not in step with what the founders expected and demanded. So, that's speech number 2. Maybe it's speech number 2 in part of 3. But, so, I'll be asking, we're going to ask what's...
Parabellum, you might be right. This might be a 3-week trial, the way he's talking.
And then the lawyers will ask you some questions. And then we're probably going to call some or many of you into the library. It's not private. And I'll say right now, we have limited space in the library. We're not going to try to move all these jurors into the back room, into the conference room for the individual voir dire. So we will admit maybe 6 additional people beyond the people, the lawyers and the defendant and the court personnel. And we'll do those individual questioning, but I will permit a limited number of people who may be here from the media and that, so they can keep track of what's going on. The case is being televised. The entire case, I believe, is going to be televised. And by the way, you're not going to watch any of that. Those of you who are selected.
Brenda, I have not heard anything about charges against the people that attacked him. Well, 2 of them aren't here anymore.
You're not to be going back.
But the only survivor, I have not heard of any charges against them. That doesn't mean that there isn't any. I just personally haven't heard anything about that.
You're not going to be pictured. None of you. It is absolutely forbidden for the media to photograph or create any image of anybody on the jury. So there is no question of that being involved. But first of all, let's follow up now. Those of you in the back row who have read or heard anything at all about this case, and who cannot, don't think he or you don't think you can cleanse it from your mind. Not that you pretend you never heard it, but that you understand. You know what the media can do, even when they're not, even when they're doing a tip-top job, they still have, they have time pressures, they have space limitations, they have to go to commercial, they have all kinds of considerations that we don't have here in the courtroom. This institution was created specifically for trying cases. So we bring in as much evidence as we can that's consistent with the rules that have been established for many cases, hundreds.
How come Alec Baldwin isn't incarcerated right now?
And we have the luxury of time, your time, but we have the luxury of time. We have really strict rules about both sides getting a chance. Both sides, under the Constitution, have a right to question the witnesses. It's called cross-examination. Both sides have the right to force people to come to testify.
He said
or not.
earlier, prior to going live, he had mentioned there's something like 130 or 150 jurors, and they're trying to get it down to 20.
Balance. The media don't have that. That's a luxury that they don't have because they have their time limitations and their space limitations and their corporate legal obligations to run their sponsorships and that type of thing. They can't do that. So they, even under the best of circumstances, they can't, no one, and not even the most responsible, well, even really responsible, real journalists, no one would argue that we should try cases in the media. Think about that, how frightening that would be. Instead, we have just what the founders gave us, the right of a trial by jury. So you're going to hear the exact evidence you need to decide the case. Is there anybody in that back row who feels that he or she will be unable to disregard entirely everything you've heard, everything you've seen about the case, any pictures you've seen, any videos you've seen, anything at all you've heard? Anyone who cannot disregard all of that and decide solely on the evidence which is offered in this trial? Anybody? Back row. All right, number 5, is he actual with that?
Big shout out to everyone that's subscribing right now. YouTube has had their boot on my nuts for the last 9 weeks or something, taking all my subscribers away. And I noticed the other day that my subscribers the numbers started going back up, so YouTube must have backed off. So big shout out to everyone subscribing. And big shout out to all the hooligans that have stuck with me through all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Did you have your hand up also, ma'am? No, you did not. Pass the mic down 2 places. And this is number 8, yes? What's did you feel you can't put something you read or heard outside of your mind?
No, I don't think I can.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate you, Super 7-2. Yeah, K. Thomas, I'm on the same stuff. Alec Baldwin pointed at somebody, didn't check it, pulled the trigger, killed somebody.
I'll get back to you.
That's a crime. Regardless of intention, it's a crime. He should be incarcerated.
22 who feels that
If any of us did something like that, we would go to jail. You go to court to fight the case. The police don't make the decisions, they just make the arrests. He should be in jail.
Decide solely on the evidence which is presented in the court. Tell me your number, please. 19?
Lady Katie, there is only 2 people on Rumble. I pay like $30 a month in order to stream on there. No one ever watches on there, and no one ever participates in the chat. They've also been censoring Salty Cracker. They shadow banned me. Rumble is trash. Rumble is hot burning dumpster fire. I know everybody thinks it's the alternative to YouTube, but it is actually the second YouTube. It is the new YouTube, YouTube 2.0. They are on their censorship bullshit. Rumble is the place to be. Not Rumble. Odyssey is the place to be. Rumble is trash.
Thank you, sir. First row. Number. What is
24.
24. And what's up?
I wish that I could, but I don't.
You just couldn't. put aside something you read and.
I appreciate you, Kath.
Is under oath
Not
and,
so much that I've read, that I've seen,
okay,
things that I know that are going to be involved in these cases.
okay. All right, thanks, ma'am. I'm gonna get back to you. Anybody else in the front row, the mini row in the front? Anybody? And you're number 33?
Correct.
What, you feel that you will be unable to wash away what you already heard and saw and not, okay, thank you, ma'am, we'll get back to you, thanks. Anybody else that I missed? I'm sorry, number
30.
30, and what's up? You're not going to be,
I feel like I can wash it out of my mind.
okay, all right. And now, that's my terminology, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm not asking that you forget it, just understand it cannot be relied upon for anything, and must be, instead, the reliance must be placed on what comes in court. Can you do that? No? Okay, thanks. All right.
Quitting time. Check out Entropy. I'll check it out.
I'm going
I'd really like to replace Rumble. They're not helping me out at all. I'm paying way too much money to only have 2 people watching and being shadow banned.
Mentioned during evidence presentation during the case, and just as a
What's up, Gang of 4? Thanks for being here.
anybody need a break right now? 5-minute break? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Please, I'm going to ask that if you don't want to take advantage of the break for the restroom or something, that you remain. And I think there's water out there. That's for the jurors, is it? If it isn't, it's
What's up, John Costello? So far, it's just been story time from the judge. Haven't missed anything yet.
If you want to go out and get one of those or something, but otherwise, unless you're
What's up, Honky Kong?
restroom or something, please stay in your seat if you would. Those of you who leave, do not discuss anything that's happened here in the court today. Nothing. And then come right back. Don't talk with anybody else about anything. And please come back to the same seat you're in right now. Okay, 5 minutes.
Must need a break from all that talking and storytelling, 'cause they ain't done nothing else. I don't know. I'm just messing around. I think the judge is all right. I'm just giving him shit. It's way better than having a really stern judge that, sits on their pedestal and stuff. This guy does kind of resemble Joe Biden, but at least you can follow along with the story. But I think, like I'd mentioned earlier, I think with him speaking so lighthearted, I think he has a pretty good idea of how this trial is going to go. Like many of you have been analyzing what happened. A lot of us watched it live, or you guys watched it live while I had it on. We know what happened. We know what we would vote if we were there being the jury. I think the only people that oppose to what happened is either the family members or the idiots that got shot, or people who are against pew-pews. People who thinks there should be like no Second Amendment and stuff like that. Those are the only people opposing this trial or the case, or however that needs to be phrased. Because I don't personally know anybody who's like, oh yeah, he's a monster. He's a criminal for what he did. Like, yeah, he got hit in the face with a skateboard, but he shouldn't have shot that guy. I don't know. You ever been hit with a skateboard? It's not okay. It's not like, holy moly, I think we got a man down. No, being hit with a skateboard, that's the proper reaction, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's how you react to being hit in the face with a skateboard. What's up, donor? John Costello, no, they are not referring to the ones on the other end of the barrel as victims. They are not being called victims. They are called rioters, looters, and arsonists, maybe? I can't remember what the third term was, but victim wasn't on the list. I know that. Yeah, you get hit with skateboard trucks, it's It's like being hit with a hammer, a heavy hammer. It's not okay. What's up, Lil Southern? I'm doing pretty good. How are you? Thanks for being here.
Goodbye to you.
Sneaky Yahoo News trying to play that commercial music and get me all jammed up. Not today. Not today, buddy. What's up, B Diggs? I know a skateboard's a piece of wood. It's the metal trucks that doesn't feel that great. I'm speaking from experience, not from opinions. Okay, I have had combat with skateboards. Okay, I know it's not fun. It's not fun stuff. Yeah, Keith, we were actually discussing earlier of whether or not there would be riots if Kyle walks free. I don't know if there'll be riots, but there will definitely be mad people crying all over the place. Edward, where'd the skateboard touch me? In my no-no spot. That's where. It was rough. It was rough stuff. I liked it. Never mind. What's up, Spoffy? See, I don't know if there's gonna be riots. I'm saying I think that whole Antifa BLM thing, I don't think it's trendy anymore. I don't think it's cool to be an activist right now. I think it was like something that was really cool last summer, and this summer it's kind of died off. We went from seeing 1,000 Antifa show up in front of the Justice Center in Portland on a nightly basis to have war with federal agents to 5 BLMers who may or may not be of either side gender standing with picket signs and screaming at each other. Or like what we saw a week or two ago, the solo Antifa at a anti-mandate rally, snickering and snarling and grunting and moaning and giggling to itself because it was in distress from putting itself at that rally. Like, I just don't think it's trendy anymore. I don't think it's cool to be Antifa or BLM right now. So I don't know if there will be riots. Like, I mean, we'll know, I guess, when I start looking at some of this outside lives. There's a couple people live outside the courthouse right now. We'll see. Because, like, when it was the George Floyd trial, there was quite a few people outside. Still not as many as, when the event happened, when George Floyd died. But there was quite a few people outside, and a lot of people marched. There was no rioting. There wasn't any protesting. Of course, they were getting their way. With this, they wouldn't be getting their way if Kyle walks. But when we check out outside, I'm assuming there's going to be like 20 people. I mean, and I could totally be wrong. But based on what we've been seeing the last couple months, I just think things have really died down. And even if it was to spark up, who knows how it will be handled. Because it was really a sight to see for them to say, oh, this is Trump's America, while the cities are burning down and stuff like that. But I don't think they're going to want that to look that way in Biden's America. And so they may just send in the troops and actually do something about the protesters and riots and stuff like that if it was to kick back up, because they don't want Biden's America to look worse than we already know it is. You see how they lie at the White House briefings. They act like we don't have eyes and ears. They act like we can't read. They act like we're not paying these gas prices. Like they try to tell us something opposite to what we're experiencing as Americans. So they definitely don't want any more negative publicity towards Biden's America. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Dracula knows how deadly a piece of wood is. Verbal thoughts, you're awesome. You're awesome. Shout out to the 2 people watching on Rumble. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stream on Rumble. It's starting to kind of feel like a waste of money. I appreciate you 2 guys watching. I wish that Rumble wasn't shadow banning me. What's up, Amy? Thanks for being here. Liberty sweetheart. Do I think that Joe Biden had a bathroom accident at the Vatican? I've heard a lot about that, but I have not actually read into it. I think Salty Cracker covered an article about it or something. I have not really read into it, but there's a lot of information floating around saying old man Walter had some issues wherever he is right now in Europe or wherever. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. He's not going to be running nothing another year or 2. He's so mentally gone and mentally unfit to even tie his shoes. They're going to have Harris up there running stuff soon, and we'll be stuck with her. They're not going to impeach her. She'll be the first female president. I mean, if she claims to be a female, I don't know how that's all going to work. But if they go about it that way, she's not getting impeached. She's not getting taken out. So we'll be stuck with her. And then she'll be able to blame everything on old man Walter, right? People are bitching about gas prices and inflation and restrictions and mandates and yada, yada, yada. And she'll be able to say, oh, that was old man Walter. That wasn't my fault. That was his fault. And deny all accountability. I don't know if they got their mics off or what. Yeah, Edward, I've noticed that. People are not bending their knee to theory, gender, and all that kind of stuff anymore. I don't know. I think the time for pretend is over. I think people have had enough. I don't know why we can't hear them.
Working was January 20th.
Oh, there we go. They figured it out.
And I met my wife the first day that on the job, and 49 years later. But this room was very dark. It's darker than it usually is now, both because of that. It looks like a tapestry there, but it's actually a piece of I don't know terminology, but to me it's wallpaper. It's not paper, but that is what those walls over there. That's what they looked like. They had something applied to them. That piece like that applied to them. And so that was on those walls. The windows were stained glass, which has been replaced, and I'll get into that later. But so that's darkening the room somewhat, and then because of the sun, we've got the shades pulled down somewhat. But I felt it was a very dark room, and
Jasmine, Antifa is not being investigated because the White House says they don't exist. But if you go to Antifa.com, see where that takes you. It's kind of ironic for the White House to tell you they don't exist if you type in Antifa.com into your Google.
Original paint looked like, but it was a very dark blue, probably about equivalent to what the drapes are now. That was the paint on the walls, and it had to go with that. It had a olive green carpeting. Now, I don't think you'd find that in most decorating studios, but they're all back. Oh, great. Well, I'll finish later. All right. What was I talking about?
The judge is like, what was I talking about? Which time? Which story? Which story are you talking about?
Oh, about witnesses. Witnesses, that was it. I didn't want to get into that.
Oh, yeah, the whole reason we're here. I remember.
people who might be witnesses in the case or whose names might be mentioned in the testimony. You're going to hear these names. I'm going to ask the lawyers to read them in groups of about 10. But you're not going to hear from all these people at the trial, not even close. You're probably going to hear right now about 200 names of people, but only a fraction of those will actually be testifying at the trial. But we want to make sure that we cover everybody who could theoretically come in as a witness, or more likely whose name might get mentioned. So that's the issue now.
What's up, Sherry?
Identify people who
John Costello, I don't know if he's stalling or not.
witnesses in the case. And then at the end of each group of 10, I'm going to ask whether any of you is familiar with any of those people. And then we'll discuss further what the nature of that acquaintanceship is. Well, I might get into a little bit. But anyway, let's start off with the state's witnesses or names which might be mentioned.
Hey, thank you so much, Mark Hill. I really appreciate the donation and the support. Thank you for being here.
First group would consist of Dr. Vasilis Fornas from Frederick Hospital, Dr. William Falco from Frederick Hospital.
Would you do me a favor? I'm going to
Yes.
ask that you be seated and closer to the mic, please.
Sure.
Somebody was messing with the wires here.
Stuck on something. Oh, okay, perfect. Josh Martin from the Kenosha Fire Department, Mark Willer, Detective Benjamin Antaramian, who's seated right here to my right, Officer Pep Moretti from the Kenosha Police Department, Officer Jason Krieger from the Kenosha Police Department, Detective Martin Howard, who's sitting just behind me here, Officer Brittany Bray, and Officer Leo Esparza from the Kenosha Police Department.
Okay, is there anyone of you 34 who knows any of these people whose names have been mentioned? Number 8.
It's a Brittany Bray.
Brittany Bray. What is the nature of your acquaintanceship?
I taught one of the children.
You what?
Taught one of the children
Taught one of her children? How long ago was that?
3 years ago.
Okay, and was there anything that was? I don't want to talk about the child. Was there anything about your having that child as a student that significantly differed from other students?
I don't think so. My daughter also dances with my child.
Okay, have you ever had an in-depth discussion with the officer about anything other than the child and how school was going?
Well, we talked about arrests in the city. We have done that because recently we were in the same
Okay.
room for dance.
Okay, all right. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Okay, anybody else in the back row? Okay, middle row. I call it middle, there's 4, but we'll the middle, the 11 row in the front. Okay, great. How about this front row? And we're at seat number 24.
I went to school with Brittany Bray.
Okay, and at where? Okay. Now, Hersing's relatively recent, so this was fairly recent or not?
I would say about 5 years ago.
Okay. Did you have extensive social contact with her?
Other than Facebook friends, no.
Okay. Have you ever discussed business with her? Her business? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Front row, the mini row. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. The next few dozen names will be all from the Kenosha Police Department. Sergeant Dusty Nichols, Officer Brandy Valeri, Sergeant Daniel Bandy, Detective Matthew Hagan, Officer Heidi Neeson, former Officer Joseph Kozak, Sergeant Adam Jurgens, Captain James Beller, Officer Jasmine Sanders, and Officer James Caraway.
Anybody in the back row acquainted with any of the people who have been mentioned? Second row. Number 13.
13. Former Officer Joe Cozette.
Nature of your acquaintanceship?
My dad worked with him for a long time. He's on the same fire department that I'm on for
Okay.
a long time.
Okay. Do you think that, well, did you ever discuss
No, I haven't
his
talked to him
employment with him?
a couple of years.
Okay,
probably.
do you think that would affect your judgment in this case at all? Okay, thank you. Who else? Okay, now this the front row, and we have a hand up. Would you give your number, ma'am? 29, and what's up?
I am familiar with Matthew Hagan.
Okay, nature of your acquaintanceship?
Neighbor of my sister, a couple of years, probably about 5 years back, just neighborhood party.
Okay, did you ever get into a discussion about business or anything?
No,
Okay. Do you think that your acquaintanceship with him would affect your judgment in respect to this case at all?
no.
Thank you. Anybody in the front row here, the mini row? Okay. Mr. Kraus.
Thank you. Officer Jeremy DeWitt, Officer Michael Gack, Detective Corey Brennan, Officer Carolyn Weir, Officer Matthew Eakins, Officer Amanda Franco, Officer Carlos Jurina, Officer Kimberly Voss, Officer Eric Wiedner, and Officer Keith Soderstrom.
Oh, anybody? Middle? Front? Mini? All right, next.
Former Officer Jacob Birch, Officer James Crine, Officer Jeffrey Van Wee, Officer Donald Rowley, Michael Payan from Joint Services, Agent Lindman from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Sergeant Daniel Cooper from Kenosha Police Department, Officer Saftig from the West Dallas Police Department, Officer Brian Koss from the Kenosha Police Department, and Dr. Douglas Kelly from the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office.
Okay, anybody acquainted with any of these people? Back row, middle row, front row, mini row. Okay.
From the FBI, Special Agent Timothy Walther, Special Agent Daniel Gartland, Special Agent Mary Davidson, Special Agent David Kowalski, Officer Caleb Barkley from the Caledonia Police Department, as well as Officer David Baird from the same department. From the Kenosha County Medical Examiner's Office, we have Jennifer Schreeder, Carrie Matushik, and Patrice Hall, and then Detective Philip Brightshaft from the Kenosha Police Department.
Okay, anybody acquainted with any of in any row? Acquainted with any of those people? All right, would you state your number again, ma'am, please? 33, and with whom are you acquainted?
The medical examiner.
Okay, what is the nature of your acquaintanceship?
Well, I work where I work. There's interaction between the two of us
Okay,
on
Do-
some occasions.
okay, have you had personal discussions with the doctor?
No,
Okay, so if he were to testify, that can I assume that that would not affect your judgment in this case in any way?
no, it would not.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Heather Williams, the Milwaukee Crime Lab, Special Agent Brian Cooney from the FBI, Special Agent David Bianchi from the FBI, Gage Grosskreutz, Giovanni Garcia, Andrew Reeves, Anthony Burright, Dominic Black, Mackenzie Rittenhouse, and Richard McGinnis.
Anybody acquainted with any of the names which have been mentioned? Okay, let's start with you, sir. Number?
26.
26, what's up?
My son is personal friends with Dominic Black.
Okay, have you had contact with Mr. Black?
Never met.
Okay. Have you discussed with your son any aspect of this that you would not be able to disregard entirely?
No.
Okay. What did you say, 33?
26.
20 what?
26.
Well, I was pretty close, right? All right, 26. Thank you. And there was another hand in that row, ma'am. Number, please? 29. And what's up?
Andrew Reeves.
What is the nature of your acquaintanceship?
My son is friends with him and his brother.
Have you discussed any aspect of this matter with him?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay, next segment.
Sure. Brittany Powell, Lopez McKinney, Samantha Mays, Robert Mays, Priscilla Anderson, Hanford Unaste, Walter Godbolt, Tyrese Crump.
Thank you, Dr. K. Fox, for subscribing on Twitch. I appreciate you.
Anybody acquainted with any of those people? Okay, Mr. Kraus.
Whitney Leeming, Mark Garino, Carol Badani, Tiffany Kusera, Nicholas Smith, Cassandra Albrent, Ryan Balch, Dustin Collette, and Kristen Harris.
Anyone? Go ahead.
Joanne Fiedler, Jason Lakowski, Danton Mertz, Alexa Safer, Kevin Glowicki, Joey Kep, Joshua Zeminski, Kelly Zeminski, also known as Kelly Dunn, Colin Doherty, Austin Gregory, Justin Hamilton.
Anybody acquainted with any of those? Thank you. Go ahead.
William Katzman, Tom Seeker, Amber Rasmussen from the State Crime Lab, Daniel Osenosik, former City Council Kevin Mathewson, Officer Sean Morton of the Kenosha Police Department, Sophia Pokonjak, Cameron Wisner, and Bijou Blaise DePriest.
Anyone? Go ahead.
Brandon Gutenschwager, Alyssa Vance, Officer Alex Wickets from the Kenosha Police Department, Officer Brian Ruha from the same department, Detective Joshua Schreiner from the Kenosha Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Kenneth Urquhart from the Sheriff's Department, Detective Jason Melikar, and Officer Cypress, both of Kenosha Police Department, Soledad Juarez from Joint Services, and Detective Gerald Kaiser from the Kenosha Police Department.
Anyone acquainted with any of those folks? Get the mic over there. All right, your number again? 8, and go ahead.
Jason Malakar.
What is the nature of your...
We just do parents things with this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Just parents' activities with the children.
Same type of thing?
Yeah.
You know what, my sinus...
Parent things.
Parent things, okay. Any discussion about the employment at all?
About the what?
About the person's employment at all? Or familiarity with this case?
Well, we did talk about the arrest with the last year or so.
The general discussion of unrest in the community?
Yes.
Okay. Anything specific about this case?
That I can't recall.
Was there anything that was discussed that you would not be able to put aside and rely exclusively on what's stated in the courtroom here?
To be honest, I'm not sure about that.
Thank you. Anybody else from this group of 10 acquainted with any of these people? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. From Kenosha Police Department, former Officer Todd Thorne, Officer Tanya Kennedy, Officer Nicole Kopp, Officer Joshua Feekes. Then from West Dallas Police Department, Officer Gold, Officer Musadi, Officer Benke, Officer Madden, Officer Corwin, and Officer Binter.
Anybody acquainted with any of those folks? What is it?
I know it's Todd Thorne.
Your number?
Oh, I'm sorry, 14.
14. Now, with whom are you acquainted?
Todd Thorne.
Okay. What is the nature of your acquaintanceship?
We used to go to church together.
Okay. Have you ever discussed his police affairs with him?
Long time ago.
Anything to do with this case?
Nothing to do with this case.
Okay. If you were to testify in this case, would you judge his testimony by a different standard than that you would apply to any other witness?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from this group? Number 8 again.
I know Nicole Kopp. We do swimming with the children together.
Okay, have you discussed any aspect of this case with Nicole Kopp?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me ask you this. If she were to testify in this case, would you judge her testimony by a different standard from that of any other person?
Probably yes, because I know her well.
Any reason this lady shouldn't be excused?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'm going to excuse you, and thank you for your service. You'll get a handout from the bailiff about future service. Thank you. And let me ask number 36 to come up, please. Yeah, and before you run the gauntlet.
All the goofy little sound effects kills me. I don't know what that is.
Anything which has been asked either
Little
by me or by
UFO sound effects.
House? Okay, thank you. Would you take that seat, please? Seat 8. I noticed that you list an out-of-county address. But you live in Kenosha County? Yeah. You live in Racine County? Ooh. Did you live in Kenosha County previously?
Yeah.
Okay. How long ago did you move?
A year ago.
And where you're living now, is that your permanent residence?
Correct.
Do you have a driving license?
Yes.
What is the address there?
This is my current address.
In Racine?
Correct.
Are you registered to vote?
This guy's gonna dox himself.
Racine? Any reason this gentleman shouldn't be excused?
No, Your Honor. No.
All right. Thank you, sir. And always nice to have a visit from our neighbors to the north.
American Hillbilly me. You thought those sound effects were me? Nah, it's not me. John Costello. Someone's playing Galaga. You guys are getting me with the "Let's go, Brandon." Let's just get it out there really quick.
Ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else now from the last group?
Chris, I'm pretty sure Kyle's out on bail. I'm pretty sure he's been bonded out since the beginning.
Tefun Koskin, Edgar Costa, Jonathan Ford, Justin Katigbak, Deputy Miller from Sauk County, South Dakota, Gilbert Schmidt, Larry Collins, Mike Tobin, Brandon Childers, and Pat Case.
Anybody familiar with any of those folks? No. Thank you. Next numbers.
I just correct that Deputy Miller's from Sauk County Sheriff's Department, not South Dakota. Anmol Kindry, Kyle Cook, Nathan DeBruin, Mary Mackenzie Waldschmidt, Juan Pablo, Hannah Giddings, Lucas Zanin, Monica Matta, and Officer Sturma of the Milwaukee Police Department.
Anybody acquainted with any of those folks? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
Wendy Rittenhouse, Faith Rittenhouse, Michael Rittenhouse, Ray Dickhard, Charles Rosenbaum, Tamra Rosenbaum, Carrie Ann.
This ain't that kind of show, buddy. Don't be saying stuff like that.
And Agent Mims from Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Go ahead.
Pepper Sprout, I was thinking the same thing. Are these the names of Antifa? Because who else would be witnessing?
John Huber Jr., Nick Dennis, Chief David Smetana from Pleasant
All of you guys just got your comments flagged for repeating what he said.
HR.
Like
Officer Noah
30 comments all flagged at once.
Maniac, I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
Andrew Ross and Corey Washington.
Anybody acquainted with any of those folks? Number, tell us your number, please. 18. What's up?
I know Chief Smetana and Carol Wilkie.
Now, have you ever discussed any aspect of this case with them?
No.
If one of them were to testify, would you judge that person's testimony by a different standard from that you employ with any other witness?
No.
Did you ever discuss any aspect of this case at all with them?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next. Oh, another hand? Okay, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Number 6.
This is number 6.
Yeah, me and Corey discussed it. I was actually down there when all that happened.
Yeah, Ricky, that's cool. If you want to use some of this for your channel or whatever, you'll have to shout me out because people are going to wonder who the little guy in the corner is.
Okay, thank you, sir. And let me ask. Number 38.
Little Southern, someone had "Let's Go Brandon" paged at Target, huh? I was thinking about having it done at the local Walmart here. I don't know if they would, though. They'd be like, "Get out of here, hooligan."
It's kind of a conflict of interest for me because I'm a caregiver for my elderly father who is accident prone, and he does not have anybody currently sitting with him right now.
Okay, is there anybody else who can do this?
No. My 2 sisters both live out of state, and they cannot get up here to take my place, and none of my children would be able to take care of it.
Any reason this lady shouldn't be excused?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Number 39. And ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far? Thank you very much. Please take that seat. Okay, anybody else from the last group of names? Go ahead, Mr. Kraus.
Thank you. Corey Washington is also known as Corey Elijah, more commonly. Brandon Beeman, Drew or Frank Hernandez goes by both names. Elijah Schaefer, Julio Rosas, Ford Fisher, Michael Lehman, Devin Bennett, Alicia McCrae, Brandon Utarte Childers, Angela Aker, Sarah Castelli, and Alan Castelli.
Okay, anybody on those names? Your number again?
24.
Okay, what's up?
The Corey Elijah.
Okay.
I watched his live stream that night.
Okay, so this is something that was actually, there was a live stream running that night and you were watching it?
Right.
Okay. Can you, even though that is claimed to be a live stream, and I'm not suggesting it isn't.
You think she was watching us? She was here on the Jeff Mack channel?
Whatever you saw on that or any commentary there may have been, and decide solely on the basis of what's presented here in the court.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Any reason this lady shouldn't be excused?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you, ma'am. What was her number again? 24.
I hope she was wearing a Jeff Mack shirt.
And how about,
We got a hooligan in the jury.
please? Where did I put number 39? Oh, she missed this. She already conflict. All right, ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far?
John Costello, we're all witnesses. They don't like hooligans. They're racist.
Child care issues with kids.
Okay, what's up?
I've got a 4-year-old in the 4K program, and my husband works, so I've got 5 on this.
You've got a 4-year-old in the what program? In the
What?
In the what program?
In the 4K program.
Okay.
It's a half days.
So what's the schedule?
They go in the morning. He has busing, but my other kids don't have busing. So he gets done around 11:45. He gets off the bus.
Okay. And is there a neighbor or a close friend, relative?
All of our relatives, and my husband's relatives, are all living up north, like 5 hours.
How about
My husband's trying to see if he can get out of work to come and pick
does
him
he
up.
live close by where he would have to do his transporting? I mean, if you say he has to get off work, does he work here in town?
Yeah.
And is the school here in town?
Yes.
So, okay,
So he would have to be sitting in his office at work.
okay,
The rest of the afternoon.
okay.
And then he has to do transportation for the other kids too. That's-
I'm going to let that sit for now, but thank you. Anybody else?
What's up, Chris Cola? What's going on with the links?
Anyone else who was down here in the area between, let's say, 65th Street and 54th Street, between, about 12th Avenue and 6th Avenue on the night that this incident is reported to have occurred?
Joe Dirt, what are you talking about? Old Man Walter is the most anti-American thing that we have besides Antifa.
Costelli, Scott Dickhart,
You pay attention to these lives?
Sahil Kindry, Elena Froh, Brian Blake, Brandon Cramen, Susan Hughes, James Armstrong, from the State Crime Lab, Chelsea Dominguez, and TJ Williams.
Okay, anybody familiar with any of those folks?
What's up, wind in the fir trees? Thanks for being here. What's up, Stacy?
Nicholas Gialvo of Digital Forensics, Peyton Engel, Digital Forensics, Dr. John Black, Force Science Institute, Evan Devlin, Investigator, Dr. Jeffrey Jensen, Medical Examiner, Todd Johnson, Private Investigator, Steve Spignola, Private Investigator, Officer Jacob Birch, Kenosha Police Department, former Officer Amanda Franco, Kenosha Police Department, Sergeant Jeremy DeWitt, Kenosha Police Department.
Familiar with any of those folks? Go ahead.
Jason Lakowski, Ryan Balch, Joanne Fiedler, Nicholas Smith, Jacob Marshall, Joshua Zeminski, also known
What's
as
up, Jacob?
Blaine, Kelly Zeminski,
What's up, Mad Cow Mark? Thank you guys for being here.
Mata, Lucas Zanin, Nathan DeBrune, and Richard McGinnis. That's all, Your Honor.
There was one on your list that you didn't mention, or maybe I didn't hear it. It's number 12 on the First Amendment witness list.
I didn't list him because the state already listed
Oh,
him.
okay, fair enough. Okay, anybody acquainted
He
with?
sounds like he's talking to a robot. Is he talking to a RoboCop? That's what it sounds like.
Does any of you have any interest, financial or otherwise, in the outcome of this case? Does any of you have any feeling of bias or prejudice for or against anyone involved in this case? Number one, I think I'm going to leave it alone. We'll discuss it in a little bit.
What's up, Sass?
Anyone else for or against anybody? Biased for or against anybody? Number three.
So my daughter is friends with the family of one of the deceased.
Okay.
I do not know them.
Okay. Do you have you discussed the matter with your daughter?
That's hard not to do.
Well, no, yeah, I'm not suggesting it is. It isn't. I'm going to leave it for further inquiry. Okay, anybody else? Okay, is there any one of you who has any opinion or has ever formed or expressed any opinion as to the guilt or innocence of the defendant? Let's break that up into separate questions. Once again, keep in mind that your decision is to be based on the evidence which is presented at the trial.
What's up, Danny C?
If you've ever formed an opinion in the past, or if you've ever communicated any opinion as to the guilt or innocence of the defendant in this case. So let's go with the back row first. Anybody who has ever now has an opinion? Let's start with a now has an opinion. Anybody now have an opinion other than the presumption of our law, which is that the defendant is innocent? As I mentioned a little bit ago, that was another thing that the founders gave us, was a strong presumption of innocence. That's not true everywhere in the world. In some places in the world, there is a presumption of guilt, and the defendant has got to respond and prove his innocence. That is not our case. We have the presumption that the defendant is innocent, and the burden is upon the state to prove guilt and must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, is there anyone
Good luck.
who now has an opinion as to the guilt of the defendant other than that he or she will indulge the presumption required by law and presume the defendant to be innocent? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Liberty, sweetheart. I think they are going to play the video in court. If they do, I will not be able to show it because YouTube won't let me. But we've all seen it. We watched it live.
Can you shed them and follow the precept of our law and presume that the defendant is innocent and refuse to vote guilty unless you find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty, even if you think that he is probably guilty? Can you do that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, you're telling us what you think. That's exactly what we want. So is anyone who objects to
Yeah, John Costello. I follow Elon Musk on Twitter. I see he wants to do the Texas Institute of Technology and Science. Go to the TIT school.
And ask.
He's pretty good at branding, I'll tell you that.
Number 41. All right, and ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to anything that's been asked so far? Thank you. Would you please take that seat? Okay, I think I had did I have another hand? I've got several other hands. Go ahead, number 3.
I'm just not sure at this point.
Okay. Is it that you're not sure that you can put aside what you may have thought or in the past, or is it that you're not sure you're willing to do that?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Any reason this juror shouldn't be excused? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Call the next.
Okay, so this on?
Hold on. Bear with me a second. 41?
42.
42. 42, would you come up, please?
You want to ask him before he calls back here?
Yeah. Would you have raised your hand in answer?
I'm going to Europe on Friday.
You're going to Europe on Friday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, turn around. Any reason this juror shouldn't be excused? All right, thank you. Have a wonderful trip. Where are we going? Where are we going? Where? Okay, well, have a wonderful time. Would you come up, please, ma'am? Come on up.
Number 43.
Okay, ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions so far? Please take seat number 3. What was her number?
She was number 43.
43.
John Costello, you gonna go enroll in the tit school?
I think you had
Get your education.
No, it's just my wife and I watched a lot of the videos on TV, so we kind of had a lot of discussion with each other and came to our own conclusions as far as what we thought was going on.
Okay, now, and that's, I think it's pretty normal. And, you know, people sometimes think that they're supposed to come in here and not have been aware of what is going on, and that's not true at all. And there's nothing wrong with my watching a program about some incident that happened in Beaumont, Texas. And, you know, you can watch what the media reports and form kind of an impression about it. But I wouldn't think for 1 minute that I would decide upon someone's innocence or guilt based upon what I saw on TV or what I had discussed with my family members. If I had the enormous power given to me by the founders of our country and the responsibility to be fair and impartial, I'd understand. You know, that was all fine and good, and it's all good when I'm detached from it. But when I'm right at the core of it, it would be like if the judge had the power that we don't have, given to us by the founders of the country. They said the judge would try these cases. If I could watch something on TV and then I could sleep through the tile and then give a verdict, decision. So there's nothing wrong with having had prior opinions about it. We do want to know about it if you're asked. But if you're confident and can assure us that I realize the very strong distinction between the safeguards built into our system and what's out in the general population, understand that. If you can do that, then there's not a problem. So you needn't be concerned about having previously formed some impressions about it, as long as you can follow the rules we've talked about. So, what do you think? Well, bear with me. Obviously, I've got a big responsibility here of making a decision. And let me ask it this way: do you think you are any less? You think you are any less able to be fair in this case than anybody else who's here?
No, probably not.
Probably not, or not?
No.
Huh?
Not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. How about next? Number 5.
Just not being able to put my own opinions aside as far as what I've seen and heard about the case.
Well, what would happen if the evidence developed and it actually was different from the information upon which you based your opinion? Would you be able to set your opinion aside then?
No.
You couldn't?
No.
In spite of actually hearing from people who actually saw or even videoed what happened, you wouldn't be able to put that aside?
No.
Okay, any reason this juror shouldn't be excused?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Call up the next, please.
Juror number 44. Want to answer?
Yep. Ma'am, would you have answered, or raised your hand rather, to any of the questions asked so far? Thank you very much. Would you take seat number 5 there, please? Okay, now that back row again. Anybody else? I see number 7, 8. Let's give it a second here.
I don't think I could put my feelings aside. I know quite a few police officers and firefighters and worked with them a lot.
I heard you say you knew quite a few police officers and firefighters, and I heard
I can't put my feelings aside.
Well, it's a matter. We all encounter incidents.
Well, I shouldn't say feelings. What I know, what I would think.
Well, you know what you think, but we're talking about hearing the actual evidence.
Right. I don't think I could put it aside.
So if you heard someone testify directly contrary to, and let's say you heard 4 witnesses who are directly contrary to what you think the case was, based upon what you've heard or what you seen, you wouldn't be able to disregard the okay. Any reason this juror shouldn't be excused?
No.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't even know what to say. That just sounds like the most stupid conversation I've heard in a while. You can't not let your feelings get in the way of fact. All right, I guess we'll let you go. Good Lord.
Okay, would you have raised your hand and answered any of the questions asked so far? No. Thank you very much, sir. Would you take seat number 8? Okay, anybody else? And the last question was if you've ever formed or expressed any opinion, now have or express any opinion as to the innocence or guilt of the defendant without hearing the evidence. What's your number, sir? 17, and what's up?
My biases go back to 14 months ago. I've been commenting consistently on news feeds and Facebook. It also goes a little further to my belief in the Second Amendment, which comes from Monroe's writings in the Federalist Papers.
I'm going to stop you.
Okay,
I'll read your website, but here. No. I'm going to tell you. And you haven't done a single thing wrong. But as I said before, if I didn't say it, I'll say it again. This is not a political trial. One of the problems with the way the media has covered this, and it's not just the media. It was mentioned by both political campaigns and the presidential campaign last year. In some instances, very, very imprudently. They're important issues for those who seek to lead our country to discuss. What the innocence or guilt of an individual accused of a crime is not one of them. And also, the trial is not about, to the extent the trial is about the Constitution, it's about the right to a fair trial. And I don't want you to take this as a lecture. My point is that we don't want to fall into the trap that many in the media have, a large percentage of the media, and discuss this as a political trial, or that there are bigger factors than this case at stake in this trial. We're concerned here in this courtroom to try this case in accord with our law, what our law provides, what our rules of evidence prescribe, which have developed over hundreds of years to improve the level of fairness. The jury system is a wonderful system that was given to us by our founders. It hasn't always worked perfectly, and in fact there's some very shameful chapters in the history of juries' determinations in this country. But I've been in this business for 50 years, and it's getting better. It's a lot better now than it was 50 years ago, and if we keep at it, and
what's up, Mrs. Red Badger? Thanks for being here.
Our feelings and decide this case on the law and on fairness, it's going to get better yet. So I want this case to reflect the greatness of Kenosha and the fairness of Kenosha. And I don't want it to get sidetracked into other issues. Now, I don't care about your opinions on the Second Amendment or somebody else's that are directly contrary. One of the beauties of the jury system, although it's not intended, is that it brings together a composite of the community. And it isn't just a case isn't being
Yeah,
decided.
Parabellum, I wish I had some monsters
It's being decided.
dragging right now.
It's done properly on the basis of what does the law say?
Oh, thanks for reminding me, Sherry. I'll put them on in a second. I think I gotta grab some coffee here.
True facts, and how do they fit together, and that comes out as a verdict. So
What's up, Jimmy? I'm not sure. I think the trial is gonna start next week, but I don't actually know.
I'm sure you'll be questioned about
I just know they're trying to wheedle like 150 jurors down to 20,
but they're
and
not.
then it'll start.
And the fact that you've disclosed them is fine. But anybody, if you've said something about the case, we want to know about it for sure. But I just don't want to get into a discussion now where we're talking about the Second Amendment or anything like that, because this case is not about. The Second Amendment, like all the constitutional provisions, have a role in this case, but they are not the focus of this case. Okay? If I'm going on, bear with me. Okay, so do you think you can be fair in this case?
No, I do not.
Do you think that there are other people here who are going to be fairer than you would be?
I have no idea how to answer that.
Okay.
I would hope so.
You think you're biased?
Yes, I do, and it goes back to the politics that you told me to stop.
No, yeah, okay. Any reason this gentleman shouldn't be excused?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. And
Hey, what's up, A2? Thanks for being here.
Juror number 46.
You see the judge's face looking at everybody. He's like, "Are you shitting me?" These people are ridiculous. Thank you so much, B Diggs and Frosted Sleet. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your support.
oh, I'm sorry. Ma'am, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far? Okay, you don't have to be bashful about it.
What's up, Jesse?
Okay. No, it never
We just had 50 people show up in the chat just out of nowhere.
Your opinion, whatever
Welcome.
it is, can be changed. If you heard the evidence in the case, which has the safeguards we talked about, do you think you could put aside what you've said before and decide solely on the evidence? Do you think that you'll have to, once you're on the jury, that you might have to swallow your pride and tell your friends, you know, I actually heard all the evidence? And will you be able to do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in that seat then, and we'll see what happens. Number 17, please.
I think 15 and 16 had their hands up.
Okay, 15 had hand up. 15.
I've had extensive discussions with my husband, with him. However, I've sought it out for the video and review, and I could be impartial only given that the facts presented were given to both sides. So just as you stated, so often facts aren't presented equally. And the one video I sought out was presenting Mr. Rittenhouse in a more favorable light than the news did. So all the news clips that were showing up were not favorable for him. And what I'm definitely afraid of right now is, yes, I have somewhat of a preconceived notion, which I could overlook, but if given through the trial, you're starting to see that it's a one-sided.
John Costello. I feel like everybody would have to be biased to some degree in this situation. Like, you'd have to have no opinion about the Constitution. You'd have to have no idea what happened in the situation. You'd have to not be a part of any social media or anything. You'd have to live under a rock in order to, not have an opinion on this. I think these people just don't want to show up for jury duty. Maybe they don't want to be threatened or something. I don't know. I get death threats all the time, so I wouldn't care. I would sit.
Shown blind.
Why not?
Her eyes are obscured. The when every judge takes an oath, from the Chief Justice of the United States right to the
Thanks for being here, Uncle Ruckus.
judge of the smallest.
Thank you so much, Mokum Live. I really appreciate the donation and the support. Thank you for being here.
Just the constitutional oath, but also a judicial oath, which includes the pledge that I will administer justice fairly without respect to persons. That means be fair to everybody who comes in. Don't be looking at who's involved without respect to people. That doesn't mean you don't respect people. It means you don't give an advantage.
Edward, I'm doing all right.
Or
No fortune cookies, not lately.
or a teacher.
I'm just happy to be able to live stream like for a good amount of time today, not just little White House briefings.
On the evidence, and that's what is expected of the jurors. Now, you said you saw one, and then you saw another, and you formed a different view of it, and you didn't see anything that's evidence in the case because there's been no evidence. You have a field of a fund of evidence, which is absolutely nothing in the eyes of our law. When you have heard all of the evidence, both parties being fair to produce evidence and to challenge evidence and argue evidence, will you be able to be fair?
Yes.
Thank you. Did you have your hand up? It's
Yes,
number.
I did. 16. I verbally already said that he was guilty and all that. And
I didn't hear what you said.
I verbally admitted that I thought he was guilty, and I figured, okay, while I'm sitting here, I'm going to listen to it. In your explanations in the last couple of times here, I kept asking myself, can I honestly do that? And I keep coming up with a thing. If there's evidence there that
Appreciate you being here, Mokum.
indicating,
What's up, LaDonna?
I don't think,
What's up, Gizbo?
I think I'm, to the court, I'm making a specifically change of mind.
What's up, Christy? I wish they didn't have the potential jurors standing behind glass or whatever they're doing. I wish we could hear them speak.
I hope I'm understanding you right, but it sounds like you've made a conclusion early on, and even when you consider the injunction from the founders of our country that you should decide solely on the evidence, you're not going to be able to abandon that opinion? Is that what you're saying?
I do not believe I
Okay. Any reason this jury should not be excused? Okay, thank you, sir. Who's next?
Juror number 47.
All right, number 47, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far?
Yes, sir.
What's up?
I'm a self-employed tile contractor, and I have a job in a house that is closing next Friday that isn't started yet. And if it's not done, those people move into a house without a bathroom.
Do you have people work with you?
Just me.
Work for you?
Just me.
How much of a financial loss would you take if a competing contractor were to do that work?
4,000-ish.
That's the gross, or that's your?
It would be the gross.
What's up, No More Me? What's my temp? You mean like what's the weather here in Michigan?
Any reason this juror shouldn't be excused?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Juror number 48.
I appreciate you, LaDonna. Yeah, it happened quick. It was bang bang, and then it was medic. I need a medic.
Would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far? Okay, thank you. Would you take seat number 16?
What's up, Jesse?
Yeah, anybody, well, I didn't mention that. We have some devices here that to amplify the spoken voice, and they also decrease the ambient noises, and people have used them. In fact, I've used them, and they work very well. And we have a schedule where we sanitize them every 6 weeks.
What's up, Sugar Crazy? I was waiting for you to show up. I was like, this chat needs a bigot.
Okay, we do it every day. Every time they're used, we do them. So, anybody want a hearing device? They work through this gadget up here, behind they're infrared, I don't know. Anybody want one? Just tell the bailiff. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Now, we were going through about people who have expressed opinions or now have opinions, and I think we're in. What's your seat number, sir? 19. What's up? Let's wait until the. Yeah.
I have discussed this with multiple.
Nah, Trigger Crazy, you haven't missed anything. They're just, I don't know. The judge likes to tell stories. Let's put it like that.
My opinion is set in stone on this. I do not feel that I could change that at all.
You know, I'm not trying to be obnoxious, although I can be. But I'm not trying to be obnoxious. But what you're telling me is that you have discussed with other people, and no matter what the evidence is, you're sticking with your opinion.
Yes, I don't think
fair.
my opinion.
No, well, fair enough. I'm not trying.
Could you imagine saying that to a judge?
For any reason
Show up in court. You're like,
thank you, sir.
I feel so strongly about my opinion that I can't serve as a juror. Like being called upon. You're being called upon by the state to do a job, and you're like, hey, I'm too stupid to do the job. Like, good Lord, I couldn't imagine doing that. Like, the only useful thing you could probably do with your life, according to how some of these people sound, I just don't get it. Incapable. Go to McDonald's. They're like, this is how you wash the dishes. You're like, well, I wash the dishes like this at my house, so I'm just incapable of doing it your way. Sorry.
Any of the questions asked so far?
Can I be dismissed?
Thank you very much. Would you take seat number 19? Without tripping, I think she said.
Hey, thank you so much, Amy, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you.
Right.
You're very thoughtful. I actually have terrible heartburn because I'm drinking all this coffee.
Who feels that he or she now has or has in the past expressed an opinion as to the innocence or guilt of the defendant? Number. Are you 25?
26.
26. Oh, yeah. And what's up?
I've expressed an opinion.
Okay. Whatever the opinion is, can you abandon it after hearing, well, to have an open mind when the evidence starts and decide exclusively, no matter if it's everything you thought about the case is true, turns out not to be fact, not to be established, even no matter what happens, you'll be able to decide on the basis of the evidence here in the court?
Absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody else? Okay, number 31.
31, yes.
Yeah, no more me. That's the only thing that actually works for me is baking soda. I've already had like 2 cups, so I need to like chill out on it. Otherwise, I'll have other problems.
I will try to be unbiased.
See how you guys talking about jaywalkers? I don't know if I've told you, but I've actually been arrested for jaywalking. And then they tried to say that my ID was fake, and they couldn't identify me because that's how cops treat me for some reason.
To it.
It's not a fun experience.
Is related to this case only because it is the circumstances under which it occurred. The case, the focus in the case needs to be on the actions of the persons involved. So there were many aspects of what happened during that period that have really almost nothing to do with this case. So I don't know what what your nephew, what aspect of it might have upset your nephew or whatever reaction he had. But when you say you think you'll try to be fair, do you think there's any reason for me to think that you are less likely to be fair than anyone else who's here? Okay, thank you. Okay, 32.
Yes, I've expressed opinions when this all went down from Kenosha, so very deep rooted in the city, and have had my opinions. I think the problem I have is the amount and extent of people that I do know in Kenosha and how deep our opinions are about certain things. I think it would be very hard for me to not have outside influences during this time.
Okay, number one, hard is not in the equation. Just as when I started talking about my pals in school.
I think you're right, Trigger Crazy. Bigot walking is illegal.
Frightening, I'm sure. But they had to do it because that was their duty. As far as influence by others, one of the instructions I'm going to give those who were selected for the jury is they're not allowed to discuss the case with anyone, not even members of their immediate family, much less anybody else. And what I tell them is, you're welcome. You're okay. It's okay to say, "I'm serving on a jury," but then follow up with, "And the judge told me that if I talk with you about it, we'll both be in really big trouble." And that's such a perfect thing to say because it's the truth, and we don't want to go there. Believe me, neither of us does, but especially you. You don't want to talk about the case. And in fact, what I sometimes will tell people who get funny about it is I'll tell them, they'll give me their opinion about a case, and I'm not talking about this one, but they'll give me their opinion about a pending case, and I'll say, you have me at a disadvantage because I haven't heard the evidence yet. And of course, they haven't either, and they should feel like fools.
Yeah, John Costello, I understand like having an opinion, especially if you've already seen it.
And all that stuff,
But I feel like being able to put yourself in a situation where they present you with the facts and you're allowing your opinion to be persuaded by the facts
There's some really
and to make a decision based off what you've just been presented with, to try and be neutral for the sake of providing the service. And the way these people are presenting themselves, I'm just not getting that effort out of what they're saying. It's just my opinion.
I'm acquainted with this person, and she's well known to a member of my family. And
No more me. I just wrote that down. I'll check it out. Thank you for letting me know.
But I don't see her even maybe a couple of times a year. Well, I think I see her at church more frequently than that, but beyond that, I don't typically have discussion with her. But so she's well acquainted and with people in the community. But every juror is just going to have to, who's selected, is just going to have a firm bar to having discussions with anybody about the case. Do you think you have opinions or have expressed opinions which you cannot discard entirely and decide this case solely as you view the evidence in this case?
That would be difficult for me.
Oh yeah, I wanted to let you guys know Friday I have a tattoo appointment
Pardon me?
that I have to go to. I think it's at 1.
Do you think that there's others here who are...
So there will be interruptions in the trial on Friday.
Okay.
Hopefully they're still doing jury selection so we don't miss anything good. But I just remembered, so I wanted to let you guys know. Friday will be kind of busy for me. But it should only take 2 hours. So I might show the first half and then have to leave and then drive like 3 cities away and then come back. And if it's still on, we'll just pick back up with part 2.
All right, sir, would you have raised your hand in answer to any of the questions asked so far?
Good Lord, it's like he's talking right to me.
Okay, anybody else now? Oh, yeah, excuse me. And you are number 33? Oh, no. Okay, let's deal with the one in the back. This is number 10? What's up?
For religious reasons, I firmly believe that thou shalt not kill. I don't know what else to say.
No more me. I'm basically getting all my hand tats redone, and then I'm getting across my knuckles done. Jeff Donhauser, no, I'm not getting the pride fist or whatever that is. Nah. Not getting that. Yeah, Amy, I'll show you guys. When I get my hands done, I'll take a picture and post it all over the place.
And I don't want to suggest that you should.
Nah, true crazy. I'm not getting your girlfriend's name on my neck. I know that's what you want, you weirdo. Dusty bigot.
I think most religious faiths accommodate the belief in self-defense, and that's going to be an issue in this case. The state is contending.
Never again. He's trying to reform me. Repent for your jaywalking. The jaywalking incident was terrible, though. They arrested me, assaulted me, put me in the car, accused me of my ID being fake, had to have people come identify me. They illegally created a driver's license for me because I didn't have a driver's license at the time. So then they could suspend it and then charge me money to unsuspend my license that didn't exist. And now I permanently have traffic infractions on my record and my license, history of my license being suspended for a license number that doesn't exist. It's
shooting at them and dropping bombs.
Big strike on my record for no reason. Jaywalking. Don't jaywalk. My friends hate it because I only will walk in the crosswalks. I will not cut across the street. My friends are like, "You're a sissy." I'm like, "Never again. Never again."
Return fire. And try literally to kill those who are attacking them to save their own lives and those of their colleagues. So I want to make sure that those. I think that a large segment of the group here, perhaps everybody who's here, would agree with the proposition that thou shalt not kill, but will be open to what moral belief is. But more importantly, because we have secular institutions in this country, in this court here, we are bound by the law of the state, and regardless of your personal beliefs on the subject of the morality of self-defense, if it is self-defense, I'm not saying it is, if it's self-defense, it is our law that the jury is not to convict if the jury believes that the defendant acted in self-defense. And I don't want to get bogged down on that right now, but do you think you can follow our law, whether or not you agree that that should be the law, and that you think that...
Amy, they're not going to remove it from my record. And even if they did, it's only the front part of my record. They bring up like my federal file all the time. And any charge I've ever been charged with, beat the case or not, they still hold it against me as if it was a conviction. I don't know if that's because Michigan is super corrupt or if my appearance just makes people crazy. I've been inclined to believe that. People want to fight me for no reason. But I don't know. I have no plans on getting my record wiped. I just don't see the benefit of it. I get the same treatment regardless. As long as the judge or customs or anything like that can see my entire record, it doesn't even matter if it gets wiped. It'll still be on my permanent record, like my federal side of the record. You guys kill me with that Corinne stuff. That's Trigger Crazy's girlfriend. He's just embarrassed to admit it.
So far.
I have a general and a specific bias.
Okay. With the intensity with which you say it, it sounds like that you're not open to what the evidence shows.
In general, people are jerks, dogs are better, and specifically, my dad's funeral was supposed to be on August 25th. That night, we had to reschedule because of everything that was going on.
Okay. Now, nobody here is charged with being disorderly.
Yeah, Ricky, I would agree with you, but I got that jaywalking ticket in like 2006. They were just wrecking me.
In terms of lawful dissent, unlawful behavior, those are not the issues. That's frightening that things were disturbed by people's lives, including something as touching and important as that was destroyed by what happened. But is that something that should you think should be taken out on somebody involved in this case?
Life's about choices. Choices have consequences. So
Okay,
honestly,
you know, that's
if
not
people,
in.
If people had minded their own business and stayed in their own city, then honestly, this wouldn't be going on right now.
Okay, is there any reason this juror shouldn't be excused? Thank you, ma'am.
That's interesting, Judas. I'm not sure who that is. I'll have to look into that. Ooh, they're telling secrets?
I'm sorry. Would you have raised your hand and answered any of the questions asked so far? A couple of the witnesses? Who are they?
Randy Valeri.
Oh, Randy Valeri.
Randy Valeri, and I think the other one might be Ellen Keelik.
What was it?
Ellen Keelik.
Okay. Do you, what's the nature of your acquaintanceship with those folks?
Randy Valeri, I worked with her at high school, and Ellen Keelik I've known her since I was little.
Okay. Has either of them discussed any aspect of this with you? If either of them appeared as a witness in the case, would you judge that person's believability by a different standard from that you'd employ with complete strangers? Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask that you take seat number...
Robert, I wish I could afford an attorney to have somebody clean my record, but I just don't think it... One, I don't think it'll work. And two, if it did work, I don't know that it would benefit me because I still don't think I could leave the country. Even though I don't have felonies, which doesn't make any sense, but I guess.
I just feel that I formed my own opinion already before coming here.
Okay, and you're not, I gather from the comments which have been made, you're not unique in that. The question is, can you put that opinion aside and follow what the evidence shows as opposed to an opinion you have based on what you heard outside the courtroom?
No.
You can't do it?
No.
Any reason this lady shouldn't be excused? Thank you, ma'am.
Juror number 53.
No, I did not. Okay, let's see what we can. All right, ma'am, would you have raised your hand and answered any of the questions asked so far? Okay, thank you. Would you take seat number 33? Let's see if I can get through. Okay, anybody
Yeah,
else?
verbal thoughts. If I ever become mega wealthy, I'll keep that in mind.
Number...
I'm going to build a hooligan compound. We won't have a Discord. You'll join the compound. Be a part of the family for real.
I did not hear what she's saying.
I don't think the mic is on. Okay.
I have a sister that's in hospice that I take care of at home.
She's in hospice?
Yes.
Okay. Would you,
At the moment.
She's alone at the moment.
4 hours.
You know what? I'm going to take a break now because I just got to pop up that the food is here. And so I'm going to take a break here and I'll discuss this with you in just a minute, if you will. Is there a seat for this lady?
Yes.
Yeah, right there. Take a seat there for the time being, ma'am. Now, pizza is here. And and I believe it's over in the other building as well. And we're going to take a break. How realistic is it to start at 1 o'clock? Actually, I try to go for 1:45, but that's probably pushing it. 1 o'clock?
We have a couple of 1 o'clocks, the competency cases.
1:15. 1:15, we're going to start again. Now, during the break, the pizza's here. If there's a problem with that, see one of the bailiffs and we'll see, a medical problem, not just that you don't like that particular sauce. But, don't talk about the case. You can talk about with the other jurors and that. You can talk, don't talk with anybody who's not in the jury. But if you talk with other jurors, you can talk about the Packer game. You can talk about the Bears game. You can talk about the Blackhawks haven't won a game yet. You can talk about a lot of other things. But Don't talk about anything about the case, anything about the people involved, anything about other jurors. And we'll try to start at 1 o'clock. 1:15. And don't use any electronic equipment. Don't be going online and looking anything up that pertains to the case.
John Costello.
Or might pertain to the case.
I think the situation varies. I don't have any felonies. I have
Any kind.
assault charges. I have a disorderly charge. And so, like, when I was detained in Canada,
Don't commute.
they told me my disorderly charge, which here in Michigan is a ticket. It's like a misdemeanor or whatever.
They're not
In Canada, if you get a disorderly charge, it's a 10-year felony. So they said that my disorderly charge is considered a felony over there, and that alone is why I can't go there,
be more specific, I suppose.
which is dumb.
But anyway, don't,
It's dumb. I actually got a disorderly
leave the
charge
building, don't talk with it.
because I was drugged. It's a long story, but either way, I was yelling for help in the middle of the street at like 4 o'clock in the morning because I needed help, and an officer showed up and arrested me for disorderly.
I'll talk to you later and everything.
Liberty Sweetheart, yes, I have the chat set for subscribers only because trolls probably aren't going to subscribe and wait a minute to jump in and talk shit and then get banned. So, yes, it's subscribers only.
From using the restroom or whatever, you may, you please take the same seat you're in right now. Any questions? All right, bless you all. We'll see you in a little bit.
All right. So they're basically taking an hour and 7-minute break. We're not going to sit here and, ramble on through that. What we're going to do is we're going to shut down this live, go get some lunch or, get some beers together, get something. Because it's going to be more rambling and nonsense, I'm sure. The camera shake is rough. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some stuff together, and then I'll see you guys in an hour for part 2. Hopefully I see all you guys there. Let's do these shout-outs really quick because you guys are super awesome. Let's roll it back. Thank you so much, RV Sarah, Michael, Meadowcaster, Sunshine Kills, Mark Hill, Dr. K Fox, Frosted Sleet, B Diggs, Mokum, Amy. Thank you guys so much for your donations and your support. I really appreciate all of you, and I wouldn't be able to do this without you. So big shout out to all of you guys. If you're new here, please subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're currently watching right now in order to be connected. We try to go live every single day. Sometimes we go live more than once in a day. So definitely subscribe and follow as well to help my channel grow so potential new viewers can come in and see what's really going on around us. Thank you guys for being here. I will see you in about an hour for part 2 of this nonsense we have going on here for this trial. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you in a little bit. You're right. We should do the Pledge of Allegiance. That's a good idea. What am I thinking? A ton of people probably left, but that's okay. That's okay. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for reminding me. It's totally important. Bless you guys. I'll see you in a little bit.